Why Japan?
I think that there are multiple factors. First of all, for an AI startup, the Japanese government has been very proactive in creating defined legislature for working with AI. But I think that the other factor is it's so much needed in Japan. In fact, a large part of the reason for creating Kimaru AI is to solve the productivity issue that we see affecting the Japanese economy.
By the way, I was asked by many VCs and also founders, why Japan?
Yeah, so, well, all three co-founders do. We're all three different nationalities. I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada. Sinjin, our CEO, is from America, and Dr. Harish is from India. We've all either been coming to Japan individually for decades now. For me, it's continuously more than 2 decades, or 22 years. Dr. Harish is about the same, 25 years, and I think Sinjin first came in around 1998, something like that, 98, 99. So a lot of experience in Japan. We all live here. Our families are here. I think that there are multiple factors. First of all, for an AI startup, the Japanese government has been very proactive in creating defined legislature for working with AI, and has stated, the goal to be the most AI-friendly nation in the world. And quite unusually for the Japanese government, they're making quite fast progress. It was started by the Kishida administration. I think it's being carried on quite well. So that's part of it. For basing, an AI company, Japan makes a lot of sense. Now, we are actually now a Delaware C corporation. So we have Kimaru AI Kabushiki Gaisha and Kimaru AI Inc. So the two entities, because we're designing the company to go global from day one. And in fact, we already have users on the platform who are based in the States as well as Japan. But I think that the other factor is it's so much needed in Japan. In fact, a large part of the reason for creating Kimaru AI is to solve the productivity issue that we see affecting the Japanese economy. So I'll try to sort of simplify this a little bit, but I'm a huge fan of the economist Richard Katz. He recently, I think last year, published a book called The Contest for Japan's Economic Future. And it talks a lot about how startups are very critical for stimulating the Japanese economy, and how startups are not really a new thing, but actually part of Japan's history. There have been multiple startup periods throughout Japan's history. Of course, the Meiji Revolution, when it seemed like everybody in the country was building a steam engine in their backyard, through to, of course, the economic miracle that happened in the 50s and 60s. So there's precedent for actually very high risk tolerance. But currently the narrative in Japan is that Japan has become risk adverse. And I think that's natural, probably more because like my generation, people in their 40s and 50s, inherited startups and became like the managers, like the gatekeepers, the protectors of those startups. And so managers are quite naturally risk adverse, not like entrepreneurs. So I think it's kind of like a cyclical or generational thing. But lately I see young people, especially people in their 20s, very like optimistic and proactively building startups. And so that makes me optimistic about Japan's future. But during the past 30 years, it's now 3 lost decades. What has happened is that if we look at Dr. Katz's research, the simple calculation for let's say, economic stability in a country, we usually use GDP as a metric, an indicator, right? So when I came to Japan, Japan's GDP was number 2 in the world, and I thought that it would be number 1. So part of the reason I came to Japan was it was the world's biggest metropolis, and it looked like it was going to be the biggest economy. But I think this year it might actually kind of slide down to number 5 as...
Sorry.
Well, because India is rising up, and we'll... and Germany is relatively stable, holding that position. So Japan probably will hit number 5 and in the ratings or rankings, and I hope that's a wake-up call. I hope that people realize that slipping down to number 10 is possible if we don't improve what makes GDP or the core factors that contribute to GDP. So that simple calculation is the number of working people in the population and the per hour productivity or their output of goods and services. And the problem during the last 30 years in Japan was that everything was structured for lifetime employment, safety, security, anshin, anzen, a system that provided excellent stability. And that's why Japan is so safe and clean, and everything feels very comfortable. I think most people are very comfortable in Japan. But that's not sustainable with the current metrics, because the 2 factors that make up GDP are essentially the working population and the per hour productivity, and both are declining. And that's very surprising. There's a sharp decline in the working population because of a decline in the birth rate. But what's very surprising is that there's been a slight decline in per hour productivity over the past 20 years, while every other developed nation has had a very sharp increase in per hour productivity. And so that's not sustainable. Of course, the GDP will decline if the per hour productivity doesn't increase. Now, the per hour productivity was structured by design during the 70s to be, not very efficient by design. There are a couple of reasons for that. One is Japan is very good at rule-based management, systems and processes, business process model and notation, or BPMN, systems that are very clear, well documented, and easy to follow, or let's say stable to follow. And that was structured by design as part of lifetime employment, and also to keep the unemployment rate low. So we could look at that as sort of a make-work project. But when the population starts to decline and there aren't enough people to do the processes anymore, then those processes have to become more per hour efficient. And the way other developed nations have been doing that is by adopting digital technology. And as we know, Japan is lagging behind in terms of DX or digital transformation. And also the return on investment for adopting digital technology is very low. When Japanese companies try to implement technology, it could be something like an ERP or CRM system, there often isn't really enough knowledge about how to use that on a day-to-day basis to improve productivity and get a good return from that investment. We developed Kimaru to try to kind of leapfrog that problem by leveraging AI agents that work very closely alongside humans in a visual interface. We have a visual UI UX that sits on top of the AI. It makes it very easy to create a co-working environment where there's human oversight, but the AI does a lot of the manual tasks and processes that currently slow things down. This helps to speed up decision making. We call this in Japanese ishiki kette AI agento. So it's essentially agents who are helping with the decisioning process by doing things like connecting data and cleaning it, and then making predictions based on the data, and then the humans check that and see, okay, this makes sense, let's go ahead.
Sorry, in the economy, you love learning, right?
No, I think that's true. That's something my wife said to me just yesterday, actually. But I think it's very true. And that's something I enjoy using AI for recently, AI agents. I'm researching and learning a lot by working alongside AI agents. Yeah.
Okay, please imagine if here is a maybe 2 or 3 top of government people. So, okay, if as a immigrant startup founder, we have pain point. If you guys want to improve our Japanese startup ecosystem, so we need to kind of improve. So could you please give your observation?
Sure. Well, the most critical thing for improving the startup ecosystem is having a clear path for startups to work with government and large companies. Let's say the existing, like Japan Inc. infrastructure. And so the government has been doing a lot recently, these accelerator programs, open innovation programs, and that kind of thing to further that process. But what's critical is that the government use the new tools like AI agents to kind of jump over the past hurdles that they've had. The biggest hurdles have been, a lack of engineers who can code software, because Japan excels at hardware, but traditionally software wasn't that cool, and so not enough people learned it. And language barrier. Most software and most coding is done in English. It's the language of engineering. And so now with AI agents, we can get over both problems simultaneously. We can get over a lack of engineering knowledge, and we can get over a lack of, or let's say the language barrier. And so I think that there's almost a late mover advantage in Japan right now to jump over a lot of the problems, finally actually do this DX or digital transformation. And so I wouldn't actually complain to the politicians. I would encourage them to keep doing what they're doing, which is making well thought out, clearly crafted rules and regulations about how to use AI so that we can continue in this path of jumping over a lot of the infrastructure problems by using AI. And then maybe the other thing that I would say to the government is to understand how venture capital actually works. It's not investment banking, which is what the traditional approach to, or the traditional approach of Japanese VCs has been sort of an investment banking approach, which is short-term cycles, usually about a 4-year return cycle, whereas the traditional return on most software is more like 10 years. And in Japan, most VCs look at short return cycles for lower returns. So they might have a portfolio where they get 30% return on most of their investments, and that's okay. From an investment banking perspective, it's like giving a small business loan, that's okay. But that's not actually the venture capital model. The venture capital model should be looking at longer spans, might be 10 years, but instead of 30%, they should be getting 300 or 3,000% return on at least some percentage of their portfolio. So I think that awareness is coming, but the government also has to understand how to structure that correctly. And I think the best way to do that is to understand that late stage investments are the key. So right now, most Japanese VCs are kind of piling up around seed, Series A, maybe Series B. So there's a lot of investment money there. There's not nearly enough early stage, so pre-seed or angel, and there's not nearly enough later stage, let's say C, D, E, or F. And without later stage investments, Japanese startups can't grow to be truly successful and stable, and so they can't grow to that like unicorn status, right? And what happens when a startup grows to unicorn status is that the employees learn the startup culture and playbook, not the founders per se. Like, it's nice if the founders learn how to do that, that's good. But it's more the employees. It's more, the not just the engineers, but the biz dev people, the marketing people, the HR people. Once they understand how to do the startup playbook, then they actually become the strongest supporters of the ecosystem because they tell their friends what it's like to work at a startup. And working at a startup means you get to do the work that you love. And a lot of the time you have more autonomy and more flexibility in your working hours. So it's not like working at a Japanese corporation where for most people, the salaryman life is looking like you're working hard, but not actually producing very much on a per hour productivity basis, and then having to work long hours and having a lot of stress and all of that. The startup work-life balance is much better, and I think it's much more intrinsically motivating and better for one's mental health overall. So more people working at startups who tell their friends what that's like and inspire them to then start startups, that's what Japan really needs. And that's more of a cultural shift than anything. So I would tell the politicians and the bureaucrats to keep working on promoting the startup culture and how it connects to people's true intrinsic motivation, work-life balance and mental health to really build good things and do good quality work. I think that's really what's been missing for 30 years now in Japan. But it wasn't that way during the economic miracle. People didn't work long hours to look like they were busy. They were building stuff that they loved, right? And if we can get back to that true culture where people are building things that they love and enjoying it and able to do that with some work-life balance, then it will really help the economy and society at large.
I love that. And even I love your keen observation. What do you think? So, of course, your company, 3 co-founders are immigrant. But, there are many Japanese startups who made by only Japanese. Of course, maybe easy to understand their culture, but come from maybe Japanese big corporate, and then making a Japanese company. I believe they don't have super flexible mindset or Western. So I wish they can find you talented immigrant co-founder, Japanese and immigrant, so that helping each other. I wish there are good matching service or some organization to encourage work with immigrant co-founder and Japanese co-founder, so that as a Japanese we could understand and accept more flexible work style and more creative. What do you think?
Well, a technological optimist, and I believe in a better version of the future and sort of, in some ways, a utopian version of the future, at least in terms of a world with fewer borders. I don't think that countries make much sense anymore. And all these lines that we've drawn on maps, that it seems silly to me. We all live on one very small rock in space. And it would be nice if we could think a little bit more, in my opinion, maybe not globally minded in terms of globalism, but just more realization of our, place in global society and what we can do to try to make things better. I believe that most of the problems we face today can be solved with technology. And so some of the problems that you mentioned Japanese founders are having is maybe a mindset that's focused on just what they've known until now. Well, I would say that that's a knowledge problem or maybe a language problem, right? So I think that technology can help to overcome that. I would encourage them to use some of the recent agentic AI that can help with research and language translation, because it really opens up the world and solves a lot of those problems. But going back to what we were talking about, just having friends that work in startups and a cultural shift, a societal shift. The more people from other cultures who know how to do startups, who know what it's like to work in this rewarding environment, the more friends you have, the better. So I think the focus on a healthy startup ecosystem is sharing of knowledge, having good friends. I don't think it's so much like a formal sort of structured, maybe advisor or process. Kind of sounds like a government or structured program that may or may not be successful. But us talking like this, I think, is extremely valuable, right? So I think we just need more of this. We need more opportunities for Japanese people who are interested in startups or doing startups to share information with other people who have the experience. And personally, I've always tried to, mentor and advise people who are interested in startups. So I encourage, anybody to reach out to me. Just connect with me. LinkedIn is preferable. That's where I'm most active. And if anybody wants advice about startup ideas, I can try and make time for that, and hopefully it would be useful advice.
I see. Okay, so if you are interested in reach out, Ivan, please reach out to his LinkedIn. You are in the corporate. If you want to be Ivan's potential customer, please reach out.
Yes, and we are fundraising as well. So if you'd like to partner with us on this journey and help solve this productivity problem in retail and supply chain, then please do reach out.
Okay, Ivan, thank you so much. Bye-bye. The 3 key takeaways from a conversation with Ivan, part 2. 1. Japan's productivity crisis needs innovation, not just preservation. Ivan shared that Japan's economy declines is largely due to shrinking workforce and stagnant productivity, unlike other developed countries. While Japan excels at stability and safety, that model is no longer sustainable. Ivan believes AI and digital transformation, DX, can leapfrog these issues, but only if adapted with urgency and purpose. 2. AI agent can bridge Japan's digital and talent gaps. Kimaru AI is building AI decision-making agent with an intuitive visual UI to support human productivity, especially sectors like retail and supply chain. Ivan sees Japan's current limitation, like the language barrier and lack of software engineers, as opportunities. With right tools, Japan can gain a late move advantage and skip the legacy roadblocks that other countries faced. 3. Building a startup culture requires cross-cultural collaboration. Ivan emphasized that healthy startup ecosystem requires more diversity, global collaboration, and open knowledge sharing rather than formal structures. He believes in casual but meaningful mentorship and dialogue, especially between Japanese founders and global talent. We encourage more Japanese and immigrant co-founder partnership to drive flexibility, creativity, and long-term impact. Okay, thank you so much for watching our episode today. We hope this conversation will help your future and career. If you like it, please subscribe us and give you a like. Okay, thank you so much. Bye bye. またね。